been a little time since I did an August authors update. Wanted to just let you know how things are going. I was actually out of the office actually all of yesterday and most of the day before, and not in a place where I was near a computer at all, and so I skipped a couple of days, which might get me kicked out of the club, but you know, we'll just have to deal with that as it goes. But I had a very particular goal today, and that is to iron out a sticking point. And the way I write, and I don't know if everybody gets these. I imagine that everybody does. It's when it's this place in the story that you have to edit 20 times because you know what you need to say, but it's just not fitting into sentences right. And you know, there are sections of my writing where it's just flowing like crazy, and I barely need to edit at all, and it's great. And then there are paragraphs that are just they're just not pretty, and those little sections actually require the most work. So this one. If you've been following these videos, you know, like the last scene of the story is the big one, and it's the bulk of the plot. But I needed to get out of the previous scene. I needed to set the stage for the final scene, and I needed to get the mood to a certain point. And it wasn't like a jarring transition of mood. Like the previous scene ended with a little bit of humor from the characters, but the overall mood was rather melancholy, and I needed to bring it down just a little bit more, where you know, it's still in that same melancholy range, but it was just a little bit more blue. And so, you know, I need to get the guy out of one setting into another setting, you know, explain what's going on, and transition that slight mood change. And honestly, it wasn't a point in the story where I could go on for 3 pages for it. And so, you know, I needed to get this knocked out in a good 2 or 3 paragraphs. And the first draft of it was too short, and it was very, very abrupt. And it's like, when I was rereading it, it was one of those things that, like, you know, I know the plot, and I can't figure out what, you know, exactly how this is working. You know, this needs to be changed very dramatically. And then the second draft was too long and clunky, and it was like I was trying too hard. And so I was spending today just basically on those 3 paragraphs, trying to trim it, and choose my words very carefully, and so that it's striking the right tone. It's really in these sections that writing prose is most like writing poetry. It's not exactly the same, but you start worrying a lot more about rhythm, pacing, and word choice in those sections. And like you're doing with poetry, which is, you know, poetry is getting the right word in every single spot, and prose is more like getting the right sentence in every single spot, and the difference is subtle, but it's very, very important. So yeah, hitting this section was much more in the lines with writing poetry. That I was really focused on how each sentence moved and how it's contributing, and how it all meshes together, and how it's sort of, you know, taking the mood of the scene from this point down to this point. Again, not a dramatic change, but it was an important one, and one that I needed to get right for the next scene to make sense. And so I was actually really pleased with the result. I was kind of expecting to jump into this one and get it better, and then have to hit it one more time, because normally with sticking points, I'm having to hit it several times, and put some time in between my edits on it, where I'm coming back a day later or some time later to look at it with fresh eyes. But I think I got it, and I'll look at it again next week to see how it does. But I was actually really pleased with the way that section ended, because despite the fact that I was trying to shorten things, that I did, I added a sentence to the third paragraph in the section, and I think that really kind of sealed the deal and put things exactly where I wanted them to be. So, all that being said, is I'm getting really close to the end on this one, and I'm gonna read through it as a whole one more time, and then the way I do my final edits is final proofreading is I put it into a computerized voice reading program to read it to me, because I tend, when I have a typo, I will read it 100 times the way I meant it and not the way I actually wrote it. But when the computer is reading it to me, the computer reads exactly what I wrote, and so it will point out to me where I just really messed up, and then I will be wrapped up and ready to let some people read it, and then hopefully they'll like it. If they have good taste and are intelligent people, they will. If they don't like it, then, I mean, look, I don't want to talk bad about someone, but